Hey everybody, my name is Danny Green and I am with Informa Markets. I am the Associate Director on our show management team, and on behalf of everybody involved with the Conference on Architecture and the Architecture Expo, I want to thank you first of all for agreeing to be a part of the event with us this year. And I want to thank you for joining us today on this webinar. We have been working with Jefferson Davis and his Competitive Edge team for several years now. We at Informa and at the conference think that this is an important tool to make available and share with each of you, new exhibitors, past exhibitors, people who've been with us for a long time, because we want you all to have a great show. We want you to uh, see a positive return on everything that's done. And so this is why we bring this to you as a tool for you to have a great experience. We recognize that exhibiting is a big investment in both uh, people and in money. And for that reason, as I said, we want to make sure that you get as much as possible out of it, and we hope to help you do that today. New exhibitors are a very important part of the Conference on Architecture. Surveys indicate that attendees rank seeing new products and suppliers among their top reasons for attending, and new companies keep the exhibit hall interesting. New exhibitors reflect a growing and dynamic part of our industry, and we want to make sure that we do everything possible to help you succeed. We want this to be a long-lasting relationship.
All right, Danny, let's do a quick poll here. I would like to find out who is on today's web briefing with us in terms of your experience exhibiting at the Conference on Architecture and Architecture Expo. The poll is live. You have four choices. The first choice is if it's you and your company's first time, click that button. If it's your first time but not your company's, meaning you've taken over the exhibit program, pick that button. If your company's exhibited before but this is your first time, click that. And finally, if you're a established exhibitor who's been with us for multiple years, click that option. I'll give you just a moment to do, and I'll share the results. This will help Danny and I kind of tailor the content as we work through our briefing today. So I'll give you just another moment. Please click the radio dial button that applies on 3, 2, 1. So as you can see, Danny, 79% of participants here today are brand new, both the individual and the company, and the others have had some exposure with the Conference on Architecture. Back to you,
That's
Danny,
great.
for a little more opening.
Great. Thank you all for joining us, and especially excited to see all those new folks who are here working with us to make sure you get the best possible return from this. So, unlike other shows, the Conference on Architecture doesn't just rent you a booth and hope that it works for you. What we want to do is give you a proven roadmap to make it more productive and to make it profitable for you. The Conference on Architecture's commitment to exhibitor knowledge, satisfaction, and success comes down to 5 basic steps. First, we're going to ask you to download and use proven trade show management and measurement tools. Second, we're going to show you how you can schedule and complete 5 pre-show planning exercises, all at recommended time frames. Third, you're going to have the opportunity to watch the live and on-demand webinars for new ideas, insights, and best practices. And by the way, this webinar will be recorded and uploaded to our website in case you have others in your company that you want to have see it. Fourth, you can have an opportunity to see where we can read topical exhibiting articles for additional ideas. And fifth, and very importantly, anytime you have questions, you can ask our team of trade show experts for free help. Very important, please bookmark, share, and access this all on the conference website at the link that you see there under the Exhibitor Success Center tab. All that information we're going to talk about, you can access it there. Your exhibitor support team is at your service. Joy Williams is Senior Account Executive who handles accounts A through K and happens to be sitting in the room with me right now. And Jacqueline Bard, Jackie is your Senior Account Executive handling accounts L through Z and numbers, and is also listening in on this call with us today. Jefferson, away to you.
All right. Thank you, Danny. And again, thanks for everybody for being here. Really excited to share this 5-step process, take you inside of the inner workings, uh, talk about some of the ins and outs about exhibiting at the architecture conference on architecture, and walk you through really how to set a foundation so you have a productive and profitable exhibiting experience. My background is similar to everybody on this webinar. I've exhibited at a lot of trade shows over 30 years. I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of exhibitors as clients, and I've really been on the hunt for how do you make sure that every dollar and every hour that you invest in this thing we call a trade show delivers real value for your company. And I think we've cracked the code, given that of the clients I've done work with where we've done post-show tracking, we've been able to trace a combined $800 million in results from shows. So there's one thing I know for sure: trade shows work if you see them properly and you execute them properly. And that's really why we've gotten everyone together here today as a new exhibitor. So let's get started. Grab your workbook, grab a pen. There are fill in the blank. There are exercises in your workbooks, and we're going to really kind of peel the onion here on how to make this work. So the first big idea is, how do you know if your exhibit program is working, right? Well, I think there's 2 high-level outcomes your program should deliver. Number one, it should visibly and directly support your core business objectives. The 3 big areas that trade shows support very well are marketing, sales, and customer relationship management. So you want to make sure that your program is visibly and directly supporting those 3 areas. And the second part is it should deliver value beyond cost. It should not end up as an expensive appearance for you, especially if you use the tools, do the exercises, and follow this 5-step roadmap we're going to give you today. So as a starting point, I think for everybody on our briefing today, you might want to score how well you feel your exhibit program is doing in these 2 areas on a 1 to 5. A 5 would be very effective. A 1 would be ineffective. So you may want to, in your workbook, go ahead and jot a number by each of these high-level outcomes, 1 to 5. The second thing that I want to talk about is, too often exhibitors have what I call an event perspective. They look out and they see the conference on architecture out there in May, and they think about it as 2 or 3 days out there. But it's not really that. So you have to shift from what I would call an event perspective to a campaign perspective. If you're doing it right, it's at least a 6-month campaign. And it starts typically around 3 months before showtime, at least, right? And then you have a few days at the show, and then it runs typically at least about 3 months after the show. So you've got to really be looking at all 3 of these phases: pre, at, and post. And you've got to be doing not just the logistical operational stuff, but you got to be doing the strategic stuff in all 3 of these time frames. We're going to walk you through what those things are. The problem, in my experience now, 30 years of working with exhibitors, is that the average exhibitor spends 95% of their pre-show time on logistics and operations. What do I mean by that? Get the space. get the booth, get the graphics, get the products, get the literature, get the people, send them to the show site, set it up, tear it down, send it home, and do all that on time and on budget, and call that pre-show planning. The bad news is you got to do that, right? Somebody's got to deal with the logistical operations. But the problem, if you spend the lion's share of your time on the logistics and operations side, the only thing it's going to guarantee is that your booth, your products, and your people show up. It's not going to guarantee that you get anything from this big investment of human and financial capital that we talked about. So, most of you are probably familiar with the Pareto Principle, also known as the 80-20 rule. This seems to show up everywhere in life. And the big idea behind it is that in almost any outcome, that 80% of the value comes from 20% of the activities. So if there's 10 actions that are required for you to get from the beginning to an outcome, typically 2 of those are going to be the critical success factors, where the most value comes from. So what I want to do is really share what I believe to be now 30 years of studying, executing, and working with exhibitors of all types, what I believe these 5 critical success factors are. And you'll see the image on the screen, and they tend to be in linear order, meaning that you do them one step at a time. So the first step, right, if you want to get real value and you want to get return on investment, you got to define your outcomes. Clarity is power. Knowledge is power. Planning is power. You got to know, what does success look like for you personally when the doors close 90, 180 days after the show. And it starts with reasons. Why are you exhibiting? But reasons aren't enough. Most companies stop there. You've got to take reasons and convert them to goals, which is a whole different thing than a reason, right? Then you got to develop an action plan. How are we going to do that? Then you got to communicate it to everybody on your team and make sure everybody knows the goals, their roles, and the actions that need to happen between before, during, and after the show. This is what Stephen Covey, the author of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, this is what Dr. Covey called begin with the end in mind. You can't say it cleaner than that. That's as good as it gets. So the major question, right, for each of us as exhibitors to ask and answer is, when the doors close on the conference on architecture, 90, 180 days after the show, how will we know we succeeded in the areas of marketing, sales, and customer relationship management? If you can get the answer to that question, you're almost halfway to success. Second, this is a big show. I believe there's going to be over 15,000 attendees. But here's the thing, not all those people are your target visitor. So you're going to have to use the principle of selective attraction, which means identifying who are the right people, how much is enough, what's your reason, your value proposition, why should they come visit you out of the hundreds of companies in the exhibit hall. Then you're going to have to execute a pre and an at-show marketing program to attract, key phrase, enough of the right people to your exhibit. That's the second for most exhibitors. Number 2 here is the limiting factor, the thing that's most blocking their ability to get return on investment is their inability to get enough of the right attendees to the exhibit. Number 3, manage the visitor experience. Trade shows are experiential. people come to shows to do more than they can do on your website. So you have to think very carefully about your booth or your exhibit, your product presentation or demonstration, and your booth staff. And you have to synchronize all three of these elements to deliver an interactive visitor experience that gets that visitor to commit to a clear next action. So when you're interacting with architects who really play the role of specifiers, right? They write the specs, they write the plans, they spec in the products. What is the commitment you're looking for from architects? Ideally, to specify your product on their next job. So you got to manage the visitor experience, number 3. Number 4, lead management, right? Whatever, if you're not writing sales orders on the show floor, and most of you aren't, and you ever want to get a return on investment, you got to understand the real takeaway from the show. The thing that you're going to walk off the show floor with is leads. So to that end, you got to really figure out what information or criteria do we need to capture to be able to qualify an opportunity. You got to develop a questioning process, train your booth staff on guiding the conversation with questions, capturing information-rich, committed next action leads, and follow up to convert to action. Number 5, measurement and learning. There's an old saying, what gets measured gets done. There's another saying, it's hard to improve what you're not measuring. So what each of us need to do is come up with a set of performance metrics. How well did you execute your exhibit? Value metrics. Where did your company get value? And ultimately, return on investment metrics. That way, if your boss ever walks in and says, hey, we just spent $50,000 on the conference on architecture, what did we get? I want you to be armed to the teeth with answers, clear, specific, data-based answers. And finally, we've got to learn from every experience. That's the great thing about a show. You should walk off the show floor with at least 3 lessons, things that you're going to do better for your next show. So you get more and more and more. So as you look at these 5 critical success factors, here's the promise. If you address all 5 of these, not only will you win at the conference on architecture, you'll win at every show you do. Here's the warning. If you neglect or avoid any one or any combination of these factors, your success will be limited. So if we want to do anything with you as an exhibitor and a long-term partner, we want to make sure that you have the tools, the knowledge, and the resources to be able to address all 5 of these factors. This will lay a foundation for maximum exhibiting results. Okay, so grab your pen. Let's dive in right now. We're going to take a first pass at setting some goals for the architecture. Now, here's the big idea. So jot this down. Trade shows are about face, right? Face-to-face contact. That being said, you have a limited or finite capacity for face-to-face interaction. What we want to figure out is how much is enough for you. Not only will this formula help you answer that question, but it can also help you predict what I like to call the potential sales opportunity for your company. Now, as we start this formula, and I want you to run your number with me, because I'm going to ask you to send one of the numbers via the question in a moment. From a legal standpoint, I am obligated to say this is a formula that you can use to estimate results. It's not a guarantee of performance. And yet, if you do things right, it's amazingly accurate. There are a lot of factors that are going to determine whether or not you hit this number. But knowing this number gives you clarity, and gives you power. So let's do this right now. So the Architecture Expo, which is a portion of the Conference on Architecture, has 15 exhibiting hours. How many people are you going to have standing in your booth for the purpose of talking to architects and visitors? How many? Notice the footnote. The rule of thumb is 50 square feet per staffer. So I'm going to use a 10 by 10 booth as an example and say you're going to have 2 staffers. Now, listen carefully. I want you to pick a target number of interactions per hour per staffer. The range as a starting point: 3 conservative, 4 moderate, 5 maybe aggressive. So what that means is that for each hour in the show, your booth staff is going to stand face to face and talk to 3, 4, or 5 visitors on an average hour. Pick one of those numbers, lock it in, and multiply those 3 numbers together, and you have what I like to call your magic number. This is telling you your exhibit interaction capacity. For you, in this example, to win the game before kickoff, all you have to do is get in the mind on the agenda of 90 of the best attendees, the ones that are fit for you. Okay, now listen carefully. We're going to peel the onion and keep going deeper here. Some percentage of your interactions are going to convert to a lead or an opportunity. The benchmark, 1 out of 4. So you can use that as a starting point. In this example, I would be setting a clear goal of by closing time, we will capture at least 23 qualified leads. Okay, now some percentage of your leads are going to convert to business, customers, orders. The benchmark, 2 out of 10. 2 out of 10. In this example, that would bring me to 5 either new orders or new customers. Now, if you will ask your accounting or your financial department what the average sale amount or the average value of a customer is, you can accurately project the potential sales opportunity. So in this example, you can see how we've taken it all the way down, $50,000. Okay. Now, what I would like each of you to do on this webinar right now, look on your console. You'll see a tab that says questions. Click the arrow, type your exhibit interaction capacity number. I really need you to understand this formula. This is the science side of exhibiting. So I'll give you a moment, go to your question tab, type in your exhibit interaction capacity right now, and I'll wait for you to do that. I really want to understand that you understand this formula here. How many people? What is your exhibit interaction capacity? And I'm going to take a look at the queue while we do this. Here we go. 240, 90. Someone put 105,000. I'm going to assume that that is your potential sales up, which is fine for sending that to. So we have 240, 90, 128, 120 interactions, 90 interactions, 90, 90. Yeah, keep those coming in. So here's the big idea. Again, I really want to lock this in for you. For you to win the game, all you have to do is attract and interact with, in this example, 90 of the right people, and you'll win this game. A’20 is expecting over 17,000 attendees. It's not that hard to win, but you got to know your outcomes. So you have actually set some goals here. You've set a goal of 3 interactions per hour per staffer, 1 out of 4 converting to a lead, 2 out of 10 leads converting to business, and your average sale amount. These are goals, right? And if you'll talk to your booth staff and say, for every hour that you're standing in our booth, your goal is a minimum of 3 quality interactions per hour. and 1 out of 4 of those interactions converts to a lead. Now you're driving your team's performance. So this formula is really powerful. When you set this goal, I want you to circle back on the end and see how well you did on this formula. Okay, now let's get into how are we going to get you there. Number one, if you have not done so yet, go to the Exhibitor Success Center, download the 3 implementation tools. There is a cost control tool, there is a 16-week planning tool, and there is a measurement tool that has 4 performance metrics and 5 value metrics. These tools are Word documents and spreadsheets, completely customizable. They're the exact same tools that I use with my clients that have helped us generate combined over $800 million in results. They work. They're scalable, so feel free to customize them in any way you see fit. But they're all there, ready to go, plug and play. So that's your first action item. Number 2, the old question comes up, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is 1 bite at a time. It's really hard to eat an elephant in one setting. So we have taken those 5 critical success factors, converting them into quick planning exercises, and we put target dates to complete. Here's your action item. Download the 5, do them on or around the dates, one at a time. I recommend that you block 90 minutes. I recommend you get your marketing, sales, and exhibit management staff together one at a time and do these 5 exercises. If you will, you are addressing the critical success factors. And by the way, to complete these exercises on the Exhibitor Success Center, there's webinars, articles. Each one of them supports. You'll notice we're doing another webinar on April 8th for your booth staff. I would encourage you to register your entire booth staff. This is free exhibit staff training. Companies bring me in to train their staff, and I start at $6,000 for a 3-hour workshop. It's free for you. So join and make sure your staff shows up at this staff training webinar. Online is free. We've got a webinar up on lead management, which is key for all of you. And we've got a webinar up on how to drive qualified booth traffic. You'll notice these webinars support. We also have the articles that are organized by topical area. So when you're working on a specific exercise, go to the webinar, go to the articles for ideas and insights. And last but not least, you have a team of trade show experts on call for free, courtesy of Informa Markets. All you got to do on the site, click the blue button, ask the trade show experts, and fire away. You got exhibiting productivity questions, we will answer within 24 to 48 hours. All free, no sales pitches, only here to help you succeed. The combination of all this stuff is the equivalent of $15,000 of free trade show productivity trainings, tools, exercises. Take advantage of it. It's all free. There's not many shows out there that do this type of effort for exhibitors. Informa Markets cares big time, more than most show organizers. And if you've been in other shows, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. Okay, so that's the 5-step process. We're going to come to the show. We're going to have a team at A’20. As a new exhibitor, we're going to visit your exhibit in action. We're going to do a 21-point evaluation. We're going to look at your overall exhibit, your product presentation, and your staff. Please remember this. We're not critics. We're not judges. We're lights. We want to shine a light on what you're doing well so you can keep doing it. And we're going to look for how do you go from good to great. If we see anything that we think you can adjust on site and you're open to it, we'll point it out. If not, 3 to 5 days after the show, you will receive a report by email, photographs, comments, scoring, and comparative scoring to see how well your exhibit stacked up to the rest of the exhibits we evaluated. All free, all part of your package. Okay, this would be a good time. I know I've hit you with a lot here. Any questions that might have flashed into your mind, go to your question queue and type away right now. The first question that came in is, will we receive a copy of the presentation? This presentation will be recorded and uploaded for unlimited replay viewing on the A’20 site. And you have the workbook, which is following right along with the content. So yes, you have the workbook, and yes, you can review it, and your entire team can watch it as many times as you like, and you don't have to watch it end to end. You can drag the slider and move anywhere you want to. Okay, now let's shift gears for a minute. Okay, we overviewed the 5-step program. Let's kind of take you as a new exhibitor a little inside of who attends. You will notice that 42% of the people attending the Conference on Architecture are principal partners. 20% are architects. 62% of this audience have very strong buying influence, right? So this is a highly qualified audience. By understanding these titles, it can also help you define who your target visitor within the show audience is. What do they want? They're looking for what's next. They want to know what are the latest product service trends. They're looking for pre-show communications to help them plan their visit. This is a very tactile, hands-on audience. They want to see your products displayed in simulated real environments. They want to touch things, right? They want to interact. They want to be able to quickly compare. Interactivity is key. This is a very hands-on audience. Anything you can do to display your products in a way that simulates the way they would be used in the real world will be extremely interesting to the architect audience. How do they behave? Well, they plan ahead. In fact, we have a webinar replay on the Success Center that we did last year, which is called Inside the Mind of the Architect. I would encourage you to go watch that webinar. It's up on the Success and ROI Center. It helps you understand architects and who they are, what they look for, how they prepare, everything you need to know. They have a very low tolerance. This audience is, they're not looking for booth babes, and they're not looking for the cool tchotchkes that you might have in the booth. They're looking for substance. They want to learn about your product services, how they work, how they perform, how they function. They want substance, not sizzle. Another webinar I would encourage you to watch is the Driving Qualified Booth Traffic. It'll show you how to put together your value proposition and how to communicate it through multiple channels. Speaking of marketing your exhibit, please take advantage of all the free exhibitor marketing ops. Your online presence, you have a complimentary booth profile that you create online. Please be thoughtful in how you create that. Your mobile app listing, this is the tool that many attendees are using to navigate and wayfind around the event. Your company name and your booth numbers included, so make sure that you write a good listing. Download the event logos and the graphics. You can plug these into your marketing, your social media, your website, your emails. And you also have free expo passes that are available for your customers. You receive a unique link. Most shows limit these, but the Conference on Architecture is giving you unlimited complimentary expo passes. This is a $60 value that you can deliver to your customers for free. You also get a dashboard so you can access a landing page to share the pass, send custom emails, download pre-built banner ads, and this is all free. It's all included in your package. To learn more, go to the link here, conferenceonarchitecture.com for exhibitors complimentary tools. There are networking events, so please be sure to study the schedule. Be where the architects are, right? Look for these networking events, and also tap into AIA and the conference social media, the Facebook Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Be sure to use the Twitter hashtag in all of your pre-marketing. It's hashtag A20 con, C-O-N. So make sure that you use that in all of your pre-show marketing. As a new exhibitor, you've got to spend time with the service manual. Okay, most headaches, hassles, cost overruns can be avoided. It is available online. It includes all of the official contractors and forms. Please pay careful attention to the rules and regulations. Sometimes you'll show up, and if your exhibit is out of compliance with the regulations, it'll cause a lot of problems for you. So spend time. Pay careful attention to deadlines. Typically, by missing an order deadline, it'll drive your cost up by 30%. And most importantly, please reach out at any time to your team at Informa Markets with questions. There's no such thing as a dumb question, except maybe the one that you don't ask, that you really need to ask. So do not be shy about asking questions at any time during the process. A couple of tips here on saving money when you work with labor and the general service contractor. Specifically in material handling, the most important thing I can tell you is bring your shipping paperwork with you and have it physically available should anything happen with the shipment not arriving at the convention center. The last show I was at, my exhibit packages got dropped off in a different booth. And thank goodness I had my paperwork with me because we were able to track them down. So make sure you bring that with you. Consolidate your shipments, consolidate your boxes. It starts getting expensive when you're shipping a bunch of boxes or crates. Try to get everything into as few boxes or crates as possible. Palletizing your freight is always going to save you money. It's more economical versus having 4, 5, 6 boxes coming in. Sometimes we think that FedEx and UPS are going to be less, but often they're considered special handling, and it ends up costing you more than using the official show freight company. Compare, of course, but just know that usually FedEx and UPS will cost more. Shipping to the advanced warehouse is a great way to sleep at night, knowing that all of your exhibit containers have arrived. That way, when you show up, you don't have to worry about it. Make sure you meet those deadlines because there are late fees if you miss, and get your outbound paperwork together before the show. This will help you expedite and get out of the hall faster. Labor, order in advance of the show. Try to give detailed instructions in terms of the step-by-step work, drawings, diagrams, ABC 1, 2, 3. If you've set up this exhibit before and you have a sense of how many men or women it's going to need, 3, 4, 5, whatever, knowing that can be helpful. Be aware that actual hours worked are billed, typically 4 hours. Pay very careful attention to straight time, overtime, and double time categories. Obviously, try to do as much on straight time as possible. And some suggestions for our first-time exhibitors. Number one, make sure you plan, make sure you prepare, and most importantly, make sure you use pre-show marketing. Use the free ops available. Talk to your account exec about what else is available. Big message here. Don't assume your orders have been shipped. Check with the show service contractor, Freeman. Check with the show organizer. Check with your shipping company. Make sure everything is ordered on time, arriving on time, because it's correcting mistakes on the floor where things get kind of out of hand. Be sure you go to the Exhibitor Success Center, use all of the resources we've talked about here. Very important, keep your contact information current. Sometimes people change, and if they don't have the updated email and phone number, they can't contact you. And for those of you new exhibitors, when you get your E3 report after the show, please spend some time with that report. It is priceless. We have done over 30,000 exhibit evaluations. just one idea from that report can turn it around. And again, be sure to call your account exec with any questions you may have. All right, I'm going to take another look in the queue. And while I do, Danny, are there any additional thoughts, that you would you want to share before we go to our final slide?
Boy, Jefferson, I don't really have. Yeah, let's put it this way. You have given so much information and covered so many bases. There's a lot that goes into being a success in this. And I think what we've got here is an excellent sort of overview of all the different aspects that need to be addressed in order to get the most out of the show.
Okay, we got a couple questions, Danny. I'm going to give you, and then I'm going to go to my the top 10 list, if you will. The first question, and I know you have Joy with you, and she may be able to answer also. Are you tracking the number of students that are registering, and will they be wearing badges that are either color-coded or labeled student?
Uh, we will have a track on the number of students that do register. And I believe that there is a designation on their badge that will say student as opposed to expo or attendee. But to be honest with you, I'm not positive, so I'm going to get that information and I'll publish it and make it available to you following up from this.
Okay, thank you very much. Second question is, can exhibitors access a mailing list of pre-registered attendees?
Unfortunately, no. We don't make our attendee lists available. We don't publish them. We don't give them away. We don't sell them. That's considered privileged data.
Okay. Do you have the ability for an exhibitor, if they wanted to do, let's say, a targeted pre-mailer, could they do that through a third-party bonded mail house? And then,
Absolutely, yes. Um,
okay,
that's a great point, Jefferson. We do make a mailing list available for rental. It's addresses only, it's not email. And if you've got a mail house that you work with and have a direct mailer that you'd like to send out prior to the show to encourage people to come to your booth, um, yes, we will send that list to your mail house and you can use it to send out a mailer. And if you'll contact your account executive, they can help you figure out how to make that happen.
yeah, thank you. I'm glad you clarified that, because I think that answers another question they had about targeted pre-mailers. And so, yeah, that's good. Do you know historically the percentage of attendees that pre-register for the conference and the percentage that actually show up at the conference?
We usually get about 90% what we call verified attendance, which are people who have registered and show up. So there is a percentage that register but don't show. And I'll be honest with you, I'm speaking candidly here. It tends to be the no-shows tend to be folks who sign up for expo passes or use some of those complimentary passes that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Um, People who are coming for both the expo hall and for education for conference, they pay a much higher bill, and they tend to, when they pay that kind of money, they tend to show up.
Okay, so it's about 90% reg to show, and that 10% fall off for the most part is the exhibit only passes, people who really didn't have any skin in the game, right? They just kind of like,
Right.
oh, I might go if and then maybe I won't. Okay, let me see. Here's another question for you. Are exhibitors allowed to walk around the show floor and hand out business cards to try to pull people to visit their booth?
No, actually, no. We don't allow that in the aisles. Um, you can engage with attendees at your booth.
Okay, and that's true for most shows. Any promotional activity that's going on should be happening from within your booth, because honestly, when we did the panel discussion with architects a few years ago live in New York, we asked them about that, and they said they really don't like getting pounced on out in the aisles. So, you know, you want to make sure that you keep promotional activities within your exhibit, unless, of course, if you're investing in a show sponsored marketing op that is visible outside the booth. Let me see, next question. Will there be scanners available to capture attendee information, like lead retrieval scanners?
They are available for rental,
Yes.
and that can be done through a company called Experian. And Experian, well, that information is in your exhibitor portal when you go to register. You can find that information there.
Okay.
Enjoy.
I'd just like to add to that, you can also, one of the options is for your phone. And if I'm not mistaken, if you do the phone lead retrieval, I believe you get up to 3. That way, if you're attending a networking event, you can scan leads at any time.
Okay. Yeah. And I really encourage exhibitors. I think it's important to have the electronic lead capture system. You don't want somebody to hand you their badge saying, here, yes, I'd love to get information. Here, could you scan my badge? And you not be able to do it. It's too early in the relationship for that kind of a hiccup. And I know it costs a couple $100, but it is worth every penny. There's an old saying, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. You want to make sure everything is going right. You want that architect to feel comfortable and confident that you are up to date, up to speed, and that you're doing okay and you're not struggling, right? So I strongly encourage you to have that. Next question, is there a press center for the media on site? And if so, is it busy or is the press there, media?
Uh, First part, yes, there is a press room, a media center on site. And for the most part, yes, there will be a number of folks from the working press in attendance at the show. How often they're in that room depends on how good the free bagels are and coffee. But I think for the most part, they're out and about.
Okay. What about social media? They mentioned that we quickly hit the different social media handles and URLs, but how could exhibitors really get more involved and leverage social media specifically for the conference before and after the show?
You know, I think to echo what you said during your presentation, if they use the hashtag A20CON, they will be a part of that dialogue in all places where it's taken place, whether it be on the association social media, on other exhibitors. I mean, they will be engaged in it, and that's the key.
Okay, let me see what else. Someone's asking this question, maybe it's in my wheelhouse. How do you measure the value of pre-register attendee list like a mailer? The first thing I would do is I would break it down to a cost per. So let's say that you worked with Informa Markets and you decided that you wanted to do an oversized mailing directly to only architects. And so I would take the cost of the list rental, which you're not going to actually get the list. It's going to go through a bonded mail house. But let's say there's 6,000 names on there, and divide it by the cost of the list, and that would give you a cost per. So the first thing I would track is my cost per name, if you will. The second thing I'd be tracking is the cost of, if I'm doing a mailer, my cost of the mailer. And the third thing I would track, I would put a very strong call to action on my mailer, along with some form of reward for coming to the booth. And then I would track the response rate. So I would track my cost per name, my cost per mailer, my response rate, and my cost per response. That's how I would track that. Which leads me to another question. Is it appropriate to drive people to the booth with a raffle contest or prize? Danny, are there any regulations about exhibitors having contests within their booth?
None that I can think of, Jefferson.
Okay, so the main thing with a contest or a raffle, if you will, is you've got to be sensitive about the financial value of it. Some people, their businesses, their corporations do not allow them to accept any form of gifts or over a certain dollar amount. So you don't want to get too heavy. I was at a show recently where they gave away a Tesla in the booth, and they had the dashboard of the car filled with $25,000 of real cash. Talk about a big giveaway, huh? But there's also tax liability on that. So if somebody won that Tesla and that cash, they're going to have to write. Maybe they put the cash in there to pay the taxes. I don't know, but right. But it had to be one of the biggest giveaways. You don't need to go that high. Nowhere near that high, really. Just if you have something cool, but don't make the prize or the raffle the primary reason they come to your booth. Make it the secondary. So yeah, keep that in mind. So if you have any other questions, now would be kind of a good time to send those. I'm going to close us out here now with what I'm going to call my top 10 list. These are the 10 biggest mistakes not only new exhibitors make, but honestly, even seasoned exhibitors make. Number 1, top of the list, failure to read the exhibitor service kit or manual. Again, most headaches, hassles could be, and cost overruns could be avoided with a little more time in the manual. 2, unrealistic expectations. I walked you through that goal setting process. Here's why. You may be a new exhibitor. You may look into this and go, there are going to be 17,000 like architects and professionals. If I don't get at least 1,000 leads from this show, I failed. Well, when you ran exhibit interaction capacity, you came to realize you never had the capacity to get 1,000 leads, right? So expectation management, real important. Number 3, everybody has reasons. Write this down. Reasons are not enough. You got to convert them to goals that are specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, time bound. Number 4, do not exhibit by hope. Rent space, show up, and hope. Attendees are planning their agenda. You've got to do something in advance of the show to let people know you're going to be there and give them a reason to come see you. Number 5, you can do all that stuff right. But if you've got an exhibit that they walk by it and they can't tell who you are, they can't tell what you do, they can't enter your space, it's going to fall apart. We're going to help you with that with our exhibit effectiveness evaluation. Number 6, give very careful consideration to how you're going to show, tell, demonstrate, present your product service. The number 1 way attendees want to engage with exhibits is through interactive presentations. Number 7, your booth staff. You've got to have enough. They need to look and act like they want to be there. They need to stand up, put a smile on their face, and greet people. There's a lot they need to do, and we're going to do a deep dive in that on our webinar on April the 8th. So make sure you put that on your calendar. Number 8, don't tear down the booth before the show closes. Not only is it unprofessional, but it's against show regulations. And more importantly, I have seen some of the most powerful architects on the show floor toward the back end of the show. Keep your booth open for all active hours. Number 9, don't just randomly scan anybody that gets near or in your booth. Ask questions, capture good information, and absolutely follow up with every lead you get. If you're not going to follow up with a lead, don't take it. Number 10, final point here, the lack of time perspective as you evaluate the results. New exhibitors to the show, listen carefully. If the architecture market is important to your company, you are absolutely in the right show. But it is difficult, if not impossible, to judge the ultimate value from one attempt. I would encourage you to commit to at least 3 consecutive shows and learn from every show and use more and more of the tools that we've talked about. Okay, so speaking of that, make a little time to get out and take in the hall. Look for exhibitors that are doing well. Look for empty booths and wonder what's going on there. Be where the architect professionals are. If you can get in educational sessions, go. Be at the social, the networking events. You should never have dinner alone. Maybe you're going to have dinner with your team. I think you'd get more value having dinner with architects and rubbing elbows with architects. That exhibit performance measurement tool we gave you, download it, plug in your numbers, and run the numbers. The numbers tell the story. Be patient, right? It takes time, but if you learn and you apply and you stay committed, there will come a day in the near future that you look back and say, wow, what a difference a trade show can make. Okay, so with that, the stage is set. You've got access to the resources, the tools, and the market. But my final point, it's not what you heard here today that's going to matter. It's going to be what you do. So make sure you download the tools, do the planning exercises, fill in knowledge gaps by watching the webinars, reading the articles, and if you will, right, I can close our web briefing here today, not by wishing you a successful conference on architecture. You will have a successful event, but you got to do your part. So Danny, Joy, any closing comments from the Informa team?
We are just thankful for everybody who decided to join us today. We're excited that you are on this journey with us, and we look forward to seeing you in Los Angeles.
All right, everybody, this concludes our new exhibitor web briefing. We will see you on the Exhibitor Success and ROI Center. Please watch your email for the post-web briefing survey, which will come to you in a few moments. You got questions, we're here to answer. Fire away with your questions on the Exhibitor Success and ROI Center. And we will see you on April 8th for Secrets of the Aisles, a free booth staff training webinar. Thanks for logging in, everybody. We appreciate it.